chạy mà tuôn mau đặt khăn đi nghe khăn đi các bạn
là tôi thì thường ngắt stop.
I also like to say that our nunneries in India and Nepal, Sri Lanka, and the United States, we also face many of the same problems.
Cất trong trường hợp chút nữa dây tha cái lái dây lục đôn chi luôn nớ đấy nớ Sri Lanka nớ Nepal nớ America đó cái tham mình banh hạ đôi khné chỉ mối nó đôn chi khma đa.
When we first began, also we didn't have a place to stay or money or any training or education. We started from the very beginning.
Con có chấp đam được khuôn ai nè, con có chấp đam khuôn ai nè, đôi chia tăng bị ca luôn ca hộp chọc sẽ cứ đam được khuôn con.
But it's really good that you've done as much as you have in 8 years because you already have the sala and you have the activities.
Con tay sầm nang lõ để xa ấy lụng chơi miền đây nơi ở đó nó lụng chơi miền sala hay lụng chơi khác ăn thấp 2/7 năm ấy quất từng chập đam hay ấp miền toàn này nó control tới để xa này nốt quất xa xa tham ấy nó sẽ nằm rách nét kia trong square mà cái quất nó không con ai chẳng trên lụng chơi sầm nang trên quất có tham chẳng quất đây nằm để fly đó lụng chơi ní mau bị Americ lụng chơi ní mau bị Anh lẽ nè ní mau bị Tibet
But we all follow the Dalai Lama, Tibetan tradition.
Quất thơ tam cam kết bò sầm lạch Dalai Lama.
And so the problems with the food and the training and also the leadership to train nuns as leaders, like their teacher. We're working for in the same ways.
Hay để tha sầm lạch quất để tha cam để thi sọc xa ca rô khu phường riêng ấy đó quất thơ là việc để chơi chứ chập đam rồi là khoảng cài cho bọn đặt non cho nó sẽ được khi này.
So we rejoice in their good works and encourage them to continue.
Quất sừng khâm tha tay nâng tay ở nát quất quất nâng sạ ca của môi chương đang là o nè vì cách bắt vì ở na ca khang phải của sát nam. Nè bạn mới ai phô thì hàng con đấy trong sọt. Đây khang phải của khách không? Cha. Ai tê cha. Cha, anh lấy đi lục dinh chơi bằng quay chung khi nó thọ rụt nè. Maybe you in front and after that. Okay. Can put around. Tôi chơi mong chơi họ ban bỏ vậy đâu phải lấy nó khăn khối cất bình. One, two.
One, two, three. Think I need a flash?
No, but it's probably quite right.
No, I think that's
Yeah.
Some of you come here. Some of you also come in the picture.
No, thank you.
Oh, one more.
Ready?
Yeah.
1, 2, 3. Okay.
Thank you. Nó được đi nát chung khi hiện thò ná. Dạ. Dạ.
Chia cho tụi mình có thể là hay khỏi gì trong cái
Dạ, dạ.
Ôi trời vô nó còn bánh năng.
Dạ.
Là phải vô bánh năng. Mà bạn mà ai nhoi với này nó cái bài mới ra thì gì là cái
Even though we didn't have a mic yesterday, I don't think it would have made a difference in my opinion because they have a very different voice.
They have a good gong.
Yes. Look at how covered in dirt I am. From just, because I was crawling around the floor here.
Okay. Can go. Yeah, but first, lunch first. Yeah, lunch first. Lunch first.
Oh, we might be able to get more window light. No need? No. Okay. What is the purpose of taking ordination, and what is the benefit of full ordination over novice ordination?
Well, the Lord Buddha, right from the time of his enlightenment, when he first met his first disciples, created a community of people who were living in the same kind of way, leading a renounced life, a life of purity, a life completely dedicated to the practice of the teachings and the realization and the study and the dissemination, a life which was perfectly designed for attaining for oneself realization and then being able to benefit others by giving out that teaching. And from the time of the Buddha up until the present day, in all Buddhist countries, this same tradition has carried on. And in all countries, the Sangha, the community, the monastic community, have been those who have been the preservers and the protectors and the disseminators of the Holy Dharma. So, I mean, the Sangha, which was started by the Lord Buddha himself, is an extremely precious tradition to uphold the Buddha Dharma. The point, to my mind, of the higher ordination is that, first of all, the lower ordination is like a preparation to see if one is suitable for the monastic life. It's a novice. You're just preparing yourself to see whether you can or cannot fit in with the Sangha. But the full ordination is the acceptance into the order. So that, to me, when I first received the novice ordination, it was a wonderful ceremony from His Holiness the Karmapa, and in every way it was very perfect, but the regret in my heart was that I could not become fully accepted into this monastic Sangha, which had been started by the Lord Buddha himself. So I think that once one is accepted, there is this sense of upholding this very precious tradition and being a part of something so much larger than oneself, which is worldwide and has continued for unbroken for 2,500 years.
What have been the benefits for you personally of being ordained as a bhikkhuni?
Really, because the bhikshuni ordination is not really accepted yet into the Tibetan tradition, externally it hasn't made much difference to my life. I mean, the lamas don't make really any exception just because one is whatever ordination one has. For them it's all much the same. If you're a nun, you're just a nun. But inwardly, for me, as I say, that there is this very, just this wonderful feeling of connection with this tremendous tradition of the Sangha, and feeling upheld in that way by the community. So for me, it was just a wonderful feeling of the blessings which come all the way from the Lord Buddha himself. So that's for me. But it's a very inner thing, because outwardly it hasn't made that much difference to my life.
How difficult is it for you as a Western nun to uphold this training, keep all of these precepts?
I'm not the one to ask about that. The precepts, as they are formulated, would be perfectly kept within a monastic situation comprising of fully ordained nuns and novices. who are upholding the Vinaya or the discipline. Now, within that situation, then most of the rules would naturally keep themselves. In a situation where there is not that kind of community, and in fact, within my own community, there is a monastery, but there is no nunnery, it's impossible to keep these rules. And in a way, I dealt with the situation by mostly living in solitude. Then I didn't have to deal with the problem of where else to live, because there just are no communities for women yet set up for those who have full ordination. What to do?
What are the obstacles to establishing a bhikkhuni order within the Tibetan tradition?
I don't know very deeply, but the two obstacles which I have heard spoken of from lamas is that, first of all, they are not sure whether it is an unbroken lineage, and secondly, they query the fact that the ordination until recently was only bestowed by the Bhikkhu Sangha and not by the Bhikshuni Sangha. So they point out that in the Vinaya, a nun is designated as she who has received ordination from the two Sanghas. And they say, well, probably ordination from just the Bhikshu Sangha is not valid. And of course, there's recently been a lot of investigation into this question, and it seems that in fact it is valid, although it's not ideal. Because if you say it's not valid, if you can prove that it is not valid, that means that in the whole world there is not a single bhikshuni. And that to me is such a useless, pointless way of thinking, because it doesn't solve any problems. You know, it means that never ever can there be a fully ordained bhikshuni order, and that was not the Buddha's intention. The Buddha's intention was that there should be a bhikshuni order. And if these women who have been validly ordained by the bhikshus believe they gave them a valid ordination, the bhikshunis for centuries have believed that they have a valid ordination, so who is to say it is not valid? They are living as bhikshunis. They are regarded by the lay people and by the other bhikshus as being bhikshunis. Who is to say they are not bhikshuni? So, to my mind, the Tibetan objections are not valid. And I'm sure if it was on the boot was on the other foot, and it was the bhikshu order which was being threatened here, they would soon find valid reasons to and be able to transmit it and not to make so many objections. I think the problem with the Tibetans is also that they don't see any reason why there should be a bhikshuni order. I mean, I think it's, dare I say, a little bit of an all-male club. And I think they are nervous of opening the doors to having women on an almost equal status. I mean, if they could go to, say, Taiwan or Korea and see where there are indeed both sanghas living, side by side, and the harmony of this situation, and how each sangha enhances the qualities of the other, then they would realize there really is nothing to fear, and that they would then be more encouraging. Of course, some lamas are more encouraging than others.
What about the Tibetan nuns? Are they anxious to receive bhikkhuni ordination, or are they hesitating? What is your impression?
I haven't really discussed it very much with very many. My impression is that they, well, first of all, they do want to create more opportunities so that they can study and practice more adequately. For them, that is the first priority, to have institutions and nunneries where they can really study properly and where they can really practice properly and where they can really live the monastic life to the full. That's their first priority. I think that they would be more interested if the monks were more encouraging, if the lamas, especially their personal lamas, were more encouraging and said, yes, go for it, this is really would be helpful in your spiritual practice, then they would feel more encouraged. But because often they receive either discouragement or indifference, and because they're always looking to what the lamas say to get their cue, at the moment they hesitate and don't understand how helpful this actually could be for their sense of self-confidence and for their status in the community.
How do you think that they might be encouraged to understand the value of the higher ordination?
Well, of course, it would help a lot, again, if lamas whom they really respect could be convinced of the benefits for everybody, not just for the nuns. And in that way, they would start to be more encouraging and speak out more on behalf of the nuns. The other way, I think, would be if one could have some nunneries set up with a number of bhikshunis there, organizing the nunnery as a bhikshuni nunnery and giving them the right kind of education and opportunities for practice. Then the other nuns could see that as an example. And if these nuns were very well trained and well disciplined and really manifested their qualities as bhikshunis, then I'm sure everybody, not just the other nuns, but also the monks and the lay people, would see that this can benefit everybody. It's not that we're trying to deprive anybody of anything, we're trying to enhance the situation, not detract. It's not.
Until now, there have been very few monastic communities established in North America, and as far as I know, none exclusively for nuns. How do you think that the Bhikshuni Sangha could be of benefit in this establishment of Western Buddhism in the West?
I always feel, but other people do not always agree, that the monastic Sangha is truly one of the jewels in the Buddhist crown, you know? And that a well-trained, well-disciplined Sangha is an inspiration and a joy for everybody. Perhaps one of the problems in traditional Buddhist countries was, in a way, the popularity of the Sangha, so that many people entered it who were not really qualified and who did not really have a monastic vocation. But in the West, if one could have even just a small core of really dedicated women and men, but we're discussing the women here, women who were well trained, were showing that the life of simplicity and purity and non-concern with our consumer society, that kind of life of simplicity and purity is a great joy. That instead of the normal pursuit of sensual pleasures, the leaving aside of that and the inner path is a source of great happiness. It's not a source of deprivation or escape. It's the opening up into something so much more profound and so much more satisfying. Even if just a few women could demonstrate this through their lives for the world, and especially for the Buddhist world in the West, I think this would be a very, very great benefit to everyone, because there are very few examples of the spiritual life well lived, really, before us nowadays. People get very distracted into so many other concerns. I don't know. I have so much love and respect for the Sangha, and I feel it's a very great loss when the monastic ideal, which after all the Buddha himself exemplified. I mean, who is our teacher here? I mean, if the Buddha felt that he could get enlightened just staying in the palace, why didn't he do so? He was, a very great bodhisattva. Why did he feel he needed to renounce everything? Why did he feel after his enlightenment that he should stay like that and encourage others to renounce? I mean, what was the problem with him? If that monastic ideal is a problem, then it was the Buddha's problem, was it not? Because he was the one who founded this, and through 2,500 years, all these Buddhist countries have been wrong. Because all of them have had the deepest respect for that kind of life and seen its natural qualities. And in the West, nowadays, the monastic life is so denigrated. It's so misunderstood. So even a small core of really dedicated practitioners, I think, could help a little bit like yeast in a very heavy dough, to lighten the whole situation and give an example of a life, a genuine life of Dharma practice. But that's not a popular view nowadays.
Oh, what do you think the problem is in the West in terms of not understanding?
Oh, I think one of the problems is that, in Asia, up until the present time, the most education was received within the monasteries. And because religious education was regarded as so precious and was mostly all that was available in most Buddhist countries, therefore the monks, and to a lesser extent the nuns, were the experts. They were also often the teachers, they were the doctors. The children, if they went to school, they went to the local monastery schools. The monks were also the healers. So they had a very important part in the society and were admired not only for their purity and their scholarship, but also for the contribution which they were giving to society and for the example of their lives. But nowadays, I mean, in the West, the majority of the Buddhist scholars and also practitioners are lay people. Everybody has received an exemplary education. They have all studied. Many of them have doctorates in Buddhism or in psychology or whatever. And so then they look at the monks and nuns and they say, well, who are you? What do you know that I don't know? What have you practiced that I haven't practiced? I've also done 3-year retreats. I've also done 7-year retreats. Why should I respect you? Not only have I done all this practice and these retreats, but I'm also managing to keep a job and raise a family and do all this. So therefore, surely this shows that I'm, more connected with the real life. You're just escaping and letting go of your responsibilities. So there is a lack of respect for life of dedication and purity nowadays. It's not fashionable anymore. And in some ways, of course, it's right. I mean, many monks and nuns that they meet probably should not be monks and nuns. And they give a bad impression to other people. I think if they meet genuine monks and nuns, then usually, naturally, they have some respect. But they don't understand always what they're respecting.
When you use the word purity in this context, what are you? Could you explain that?
I'm referring basically to a life which is not based on sensual pleasures, especially also sexual pleasures. After all monks and nuns are naturally celibate. That does not just mean with the body, but hopefully also with the mind. And a mind which is concerned with the Dharma, with the practice, with the inner life, and not so concerned with material prosperity or how to get on in the world, which after all, if you're a householder, you have to concern yourself with. It's your responsibility to do so. You have children that you have to educate, you have a family you have to care for, so you have to care. The Buddha always understood that. But that also, unless one is extremely skillful, is a distraction, which is why the Buddha said that the household life is full of dust. It's not that in the time of the Buddha, householders did not again high spiritual realizations, but then they had the Buddha there. And of course you can, no one is denying that in the household life you can gain great spiritual realizations, but it's ever so much more difficult. And also it's a different kind of life. It is a different life. I'm not saying one is better than the other, but I think the two need each other. And that the lay people need the inspiration of people who are leading a life, as I say, of simplicity and purity. And on the other hand, those leading that kind of life need the input from the others, and there is an interconnection between the two. That is lost in the West.
So are you saying that a householder cannot live a life of simplicity and purity?
It's harder. Of course they can, and some do. But it's a lot harder, and there are usually a lot more distractions. One can deal skillfully with this, but it's harder. And it's not so apparent. The Sangha were also there to act as an example and a reminder to the lay people of the spiritual life. Now, there can be lay people, and there are lay people who are leading very deeply spiritual lives. It's not so apparent to others. And certainly it's more complicated. It's very hard if you have a job and children and responsibilities to lead a life of total simplicity. You can do it, but it's much harder.
In the West, there are many who say we prefer to have a lay teacher because the lay teacher understands our problems.
That can also be true. I mean, this is also the argument in the Catholic Church for having married priests. And I mean, I think that's a very valid objection. On the other hand, Buddhism, I mean, it's not just a matter of family counseling and being a psychiatrist. I mean, basically, if you go to a Buddhist teacher, in order to understand the mind and how the mind works. And for that, you need someone who has really had the experience, who has really had the practice to be able to do that. And someone who has really begun to understand how their mind works, what to speak of the nature of the mind, just how the mind works, how desires, how anger, how envy arise in the mind, who have really experienced these things. It's irrelevant whether they're married or whether they're a monk. They understand the nature of how the mind works, how samsara keeps going. And sometimes if you're standing outside, you see it so much more clearly. You see the dynamics because you're not right in the middle of it. So, I mean, personally, I find a lot of people come to me with their marital problems. And on the one hand, I'm quite amused, you know, by this situation. On the other hand, as they're telling me, for a moment, I think, how do I know? But then suddenly, it's like the whole picture comes, it's so clear what's wrong here, you know? So although I've never had that personal experience, somehow I'm able often to say the right thing. At least later they tell me that was the right thing, and it helped a lot. So I think sometimes distance lends a clearer perception than being right in the middle of it. Which is why, not only in Buddhist countries, but also in Catholic countries through the ages, people have always just spontaneously gone to monks and nuns and priests for their advice, and not to their next door neighbors so much. Why do they do that?
What do you think, back to the Bhikshuni issue, what do you think the prospects are for establishing an international Bhikkhuni Sangha? Some countries are more difficult than others. What strategies or advice might you offer for helping women to achieve full illumination?
Well, yes, I think first of all, as you say, we have to recognize that each country is very unique and has its own unique problems. But at the same time, apart from Korea and Taiwan, the main problems for all nuns in the other Buddhist countries such as Thailand and Burma and here in Cambodia and among the Tibetans also, is this tremendous need for education and the opportunities to really be trained and to lead a full Dharma life. And for some of them, I think that this is their main priority. There's no way that they can think about taking higher ordination before they can even have the opportunities to study and to overcome their enormous sense of inferiority and basic worthlessness. Once there is the mechanics for people to really study and train properly, then that will attract a whole different kind of woman to the order. Certainly in Thailand, when I was there, again and again I was approached by very educated young middle-class girls who said that they would love to be nuns, but where could they go? Where could they study? You know, they were college graduates, they were intelligent, they were very bright girls. They really wanted to be able to have an opportunity to study and dedicate their life to the Dharma, but there was nowhere for them to go. So first we have to set up these kind of institutions, and then that will attract, as it has done in Taiwan and Korea, a very different kind of person, a much more educated girl who will make a conscious decision to become a nun because that's what she wishes to do, not merely because she's forced into it by economic factors. Once that is established and one has this, large group of more educated nuns with well-trained and with good opportunities, then I think is a time to start more and more introducing the idea of giving them higher ordination. Before that, it would just be chaotic, because even if they took it, they wouldn't know how to maintain it properly. They would give a very bad image. They would then be the cause of a lot of criticism, and I think that it would be very detrimental for the whole issue. So first we need to get nuns well-trained, well-educated, and then I think it would just naturally happen, because now everyone's talking about it. Before, people weren't even thinking about it. Now it's very much the tide has turned, but slowly, slowly. And it has to come from themselves. That's why something like Sakidita is such a wonderful organization, because it does give nuns from all these countries the opportunity to see that there are bhikshunis in the world, and that these bhikshunis are well educated and well disciplined, and that they are worthy of respect. These nuns themselves respect their own these bhikshunis. So this is already a big step forward for nuns to respect other nuns. And then from that, the aspiration to be like them arises.
How could Buddhism help women to overcome feelings of inferiority and worthlessness, or might it just reinforce them?
I think it depends which sutras you look at. nature of the mind, there is no male and female, first of all. The Buddha himself said that women were totally, indisputably capable of enlightenment, and throughout Buddhist history there have been so many cases of enlightened women. In addition, this lifetime female, next lifetime male, next lifetime female, who knows? All males have been females, all females have been male. I think we shouldn't cling too much to our present identity. This is a very transitory thing. We don't know what we were last time, what we're going to be next time. So why do we make such a big deal of this thing? It's so absurd when you look around the world. I mean, there are so many extraordinarily capable women and extraordinarily capable men, incompetent women, incompetent men. And it has nothing to do with their sex. It just has to do with their qualities. So, I mean, Buddhism, if it was true to itself, would understand that whole gender question is really quite irrelevant when it comes to leading a spiritual life. And if the teachers would only understand that, they're beginning to understand it. As they meet more and more, I think also in the West, with a completely different kind of woman who is well educated, articulate, and doesn't inwardly see herself as being inferior to anybody. This might be a surprise, but then they have to reevaluate their ideas a bit. And when Asian women see this also, and see amongst themselves educated Asians who are very competent, very intelligent, then also they begin to understand their own potential. The problem is only that women have been traditionally raised to think they have very little potential. Once they understand this is not the case, then the whole situation will change. It's not what I mean. The point is that there's nothing in the scriptures. Well, there is, but I mean, they're not such important things in the scriptures which say that women have to be inferior, because obviously, in the nature of things, there is really no male or female. So the basic grounding is for this equality. That's what I mean. It's not within the scriptures that we have to be biased. It's just how it's turned out later due to social factors.
Anything else you'd like to share?
No, except I think that this is a very interesting time to be a woman. I mean, even though sometimes, because I was mostly in a monastic situation with males and not with females, it was sometimes quite difficult. Nonetheless, I do not regret being reborn as a female. I think it was a very wise decision, and I really, really from my heart aspire to always be reborn as a female, because I think it's very important at this time for women to support and encourage each other. There are so many male teachers, and we have to, from our side now, encourage women to wake up. It's like women have been asleep. And now finally they're starting to yawn and stretch and begin to wake up and realize that they are half the human race, and absolutely equally important. How would the human race carry on without us? And that we have so much to offer to the Dharma and to society and to the world. And I don't think it helps by becoming more aggressive and more male, but by discovering also our own innate qualities and appreciating those qualities. So I think it's very nice to be alive.
You don't know what you're going to ask me.
Oh, you're gonna ask about the Shuni issue.
It's already on.
Venerable, could you please explain what is the purpose of becoming a bhikkhuni? Why is it a good thing to become a bhikkhuni? becoming a bhikkhuni?
Well, to my mind, a bhikkhuni is all important if one has to tread the path correctly. Because I have been a laywoman practicing meditation for maybe 20 years, and I have studied the Dhamma as far as such things are possible. But now I feel this wearing the robe is a perfect renunciation, and I have physically also renounced. And being in Sarnath, I feel really happy because I have given up house and home, and not only that, the country as well. And I am in a different place altogether. And I feel that already my renunciation is very sound. So, with that foundation, I am able to concentrate better, and I feel that my kusala, the wholesomeness, is really better, and I feel I am heading for the greater achievements on the path.
What is the advantage to being a bhikkhuni in contrast to being a shramaneri?
Well, I have had not much experience in being a samaneri, except I could tell you that a samaneri doesn't carry with it all the discipline of the bhikkhuni. She has 311 rules to keep, and she has daily confessions, and she has bi-monthly recitation of the Patimokha, the rules of discipline, and things like, say, spending the rains retreat and receiving katina, and along with it, the study of Dhamma, and I think altogether a much bigger responsibility, which makes it necessary that we have to be aware every moment of the day whether we are keeping this discipline, which is very wholesome indeed.
So you mean the more precepts, the more discipline, the more mindfulness? Is this the idea?
Really, mindfulness, if you establish, the discipline is automatic, because you don't trespass any of, you don't commit any of the serious or even slight errors in your discipline. If the mindfulness is correct, I think automatically you keep the Vinaya rules for one who is mindful. It is no greater effort to be keeping physical discipline, because the mind is disciplined, and along with it speech and action become discipline. So I think if you are really on the path, this discipline is not such an important thing. It comes so automatically.
There is a lot of opposition among some people in Sri Lanka to establishing a bhikkhuni sangha. Could you explain what this opposition is coming from?
I cannot tell you what it is coming from, because it is not clear to me even now why they should oppose. To me, it looks as if the Bhikkhuni Sangha is the most natural thing that should be, because it is complementing the Bhikkhu Sangha, and then together the brotherhood is established for greater strength, and with the help of the Vinaya discipline, they contact each other as much as necessary thus far and no further. So the right communication is established in the Bhikkhu Sangha and the Bhikkhuni Sangha to the benefit of both Sanghas. So I feel that it is absolutely necessary to have this balance of Bhikkhu, Bhikkhuni, Upasaka, Upasika, the four Chatuparisa, the fourfold society that the Buddha established. And I don't think we could improve upon it. Neither do I think that you could cut down on any one of it. These four appear to be the four pillars on which the establishment of the entire sasana rests. So Bhikkhuni order being non-existent means that the whole sasana is lopsided and the balance does not prevail.